Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava, Radha Madhava, Shri Radhe. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Gauranitai, Jaya, Jaya Radha Shama Sundar, Radha Shama Sundar, Shri Radhe. Sham Sundar. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Nitai Go Premanandi. Hi Krishna, I need some help, please. I need all you Matajis, please come forward, give me some support. You Matajis, come sit forward. Prabhus, please come. I cannot sit so far away from you. You help me. Give me some support. So this evening, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 4. Sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā. Please repeat. Sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā. Matajis. Sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā sarva-yoniṣu kaunteya mūrtayaḥ sambhavanti tāsāṁ brahma mahad yonir ahaṁ bīja-pradaḥ pitā. Okay, word for word. Sarva-yoniṣu, in all species of life. Kaunteya, O son of Kuntī. Mūrtayaḥ, forms. Sambhavanti, they appear. Ya, which. Tāsāṁ, of all of them. Brahmā, the supreme. Mahad yoni, source of birth in the material substance. Aham, I. Bīja-pradaḥ, the seed giving. Pitā, father. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kuntī, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving Father. Please repeat. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kuntī, are made possible by birth in this material nature, that I am the seed-giving Father. Purport. In this verse, it is clearly explained that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, is the original Father of all living entities. The living entities are combinations of the material nature and the spiritual nature. Such living entities are seen not only on this planet, but on every planet, even on the highest, where Brahmā is situated. Everywhere there are living entities. Within the earth there are living entities. Even within water and within fire. All these appearances are due to the mother, material nature, and Kṛṣṇa's seed-giving process. The purport is that the material world is impregnated with living entities who come out in various forms at the time of creation according to their past deeds. Om Aganati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavanishvare Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hariparye Vanchakalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All right, so today we're reading from the 14th chapter, which is entitled The Three Modes of Material Nature. This chapter is divided into three parts. The first part we learned about the conditioning of the three modes. As Prabhupada was saying in the purport, the jiva, or the living entity, the soul, is actually spiritual by nature. But because of material desires, because of their karma from previous activities, they were forced to take birth within this material realm, which is governed by the three modes. There's this famous painting, which I really liked when I was a young devotee, where you can see the demigods up in the clouds, and they're like puppet masters, and the human beings, they're attached with different strings. You know that picture, yeah. So You know, it's a very illustrative picture, because all of us, we're thinking we're free and independent to do as we like. But actually at every step in this material world, we are affected by the three modes of material nature. And even so, in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, we're sitting in the boat. We're safe. You know, like the living entity gets tossed in the ocean of material existence with huge waves from this to that and like that. And when we come to the shelter of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, we're kind of saved. We're inside the boat. But still the boat is on the ocean, and we're still sometimes feeling the effects, you know, of the three modes. Anyhow, so now we're in the middle part of this, no, we're not quite yet. We're in the first part of the 14th chapter that teaches us about the conditioning of the three modes. The middle part tells us more in detail what these three modes are, their characteristics and everything. And then the last portion of this 14th chapter, Kṛṣṇa tells how to become free from these three modes of material nature, which we all need to know. So we're eager to come to the last part of this chapter. In effect, I'll give a little secret away. Kṛṣṇa will tell that only by pure devotional service, only by devotional service to Kṛṣṇa, can we actually come free from the influence of these three modes of material nature. So today's topic, I mean, as with every verse and every purport of Srila Prabhupada, we can always branch out in so many different directions. But I've just focused that Kṛṣṇa is saying, you know, that he makes it possible for all living entities to take birth in this material nature, that he's the origin, that he's the cause of that, and that he is the seed-giving Father, right? That's what the verse is teaching us. So Srila Prabhupada, in many places, he explains that there are 8,400,000 species of life, right? The children nowadays in the schools, they're being taught that the scientists, they're estimating, they're guessing, you know, they're speculating that there must be 8.7 species. So they're pretty close. Shastra is saying 8.4. But the material scientists, they've only been able to identify 1.2 million species of life, and most of them are insects, of what's going on with these species in the material world. In the spiritual world, the soul being spiritual, and once we come to our spiritual swarup, our eternal service, we are no longer forced to take birth and death. It's only because we are in contact with the modes and the material energy that again and again the souls are forced to accept bodies. So Prabhupada, he actually gives the breakdown of these species. I thought just to let you know, because it's interesting. Jalaja navalakshani, stavara laksha vingshati, krimayo ruja sankhya pakshinam dasha lakshanam, trimsa lakshani pashava chatur lakshani manusha. Excuse my really, really bad Sanskrit. I don't really know Sanskrit, but I can see many times repeated the word lakshana, right? So the explanation is given that there's 900,000 species of living entities living in water, aquatics. There's 2 million non-moving living entities, stavara, you know, like trees, plants, flowers, 2 million species. 1,100,000 insects and reptiles. So if you think that the scientists, the modern scientists only know 1.2 million species, here according to Shastra, 1.1 million are just insects and reptiles. So they don't know very much. Then 1 million species of birds, 3 million different species of animals, and 400,000 types of human beings. So we all have known, we've heard these figures, and I'm just repeating. But in these figures, what always made me perplexed, made me wonder, the part where it says 400,000 species of human beings. I couldn't understand because, okay, we know we've got Eskimos, we've got Europeans, we've got Eastern Europeans, Russian people, Japanese, Chinese, Australian indigenous people, American native Indians, these different types of people we know on this earth, but somehow or other, in my mind, it didn't add up to 400,000. So I was wondering, what is this 400,000? And actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains it in a very interesting way. I purposefully, with this sloka, didn't venture to try and explain about evolution or anything like that, because I'm not so learned about it. All I know is Michael Kramer, very famous Prabhupada disciple devotee who wrote that book, Forbidden Archaeology, and others, they've long debunked, the evolution theory. And even now in these modern days, with the knowledge of DNA, it's actually all become very different, not the understanding of Darwin, of the evolution of species now proves to be quite primitive. Anyhow, I won't go in that direction. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains there's an evolution of consciousness. Actually, Srila Prabhupada explains these 8,400,000 species, they're like so many ready-made apartments. Like you have a big company like Omax, down the road they make this big housing complex, and you will have some 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment. You will have some houses upstairs and downstairs. You'll have some studio apartments. You'll have some which will be shops, different functions, right? They're just providing the facility, and people will come and fill it up according to their needs and their means, of course. So similarly, Lord Brahma was instructed to create this material world by Kṛṣṇa directly. So he gives the facilities of these different species, and then the living entities similarly occupy these species of life according to their level of consciousness, according to their material desires, according to their past pious or impious activities. So the evolution of consciousness, that's the tricky part. It can go up, but if again we get too much involved, with the modes of material nature, especially tamagun, our consciousness can degrade as well and go back down into lower species. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains about the human species. He says 3 lakh, that's 300,000, right? There's 400,000 types of human beings. He says 300,000 of them are uncivilized. They're considered uncivilized. Why? Because these people don't accept basic morality or the existence of God. They don't even accept the basic necessity of covering the body. So we know, even here in India also, there's some parts where tourists or outsiders are not allowed to go because there's some indigenous people are living there and they don't want to disturb them. And plus people have tried to go there and they've just been killed, right? So usually when we think of uncivilized, we think of those kinds of people, right? They will run practically naked in the forest and like that. However, if you go according to this description, for example, if you go to Byron Bay in Australia, which is a very famous beach town, people pride themselves to lie naked. It's embarrassing, for a devotee lady even to go there. I don't go there. We used to go on Harinam, and you go on Harinam along the beach, on the weekend to try and encourage people in the holy name. But actually it becomes too much because you don't know where to look because people are not dressed. And then probably if you speak to them, they don't believe in God. They're not interested. So according to this description, these kinds of people, even so they have 2 arms, 2 legs, and they might have some education or a profession or whatever, but actually they belong in the category of uncivilized, because that's where their consciousness is at. You understand? You see? Now gradually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, some may accept morality. Actually, we have to be a bit more decent, we have to be moral in our behavior, follow some kind of integrity for a peaceful movement in our society, so it's peaceful. But still they're atheistic. Now slowly in time the consciousness develops and some learn about the existence of God. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says from that moment their lives began to take on true beauty. And also in Bhagavatam it's taught like that. Actually, human existence, human life begins when the consciousness is at a point of accepting the existence of God. That's human life. Prabhupada says, if you're just eating, sleeping, mating and defending, then actually your consciousness is that of an animal, a 2-legged animal. My Gurudev would say 2-legged hog. You're just wanting to eat stool. Hogs are interested in eating stool. So if your consciousness is just interested to enjoy this body, you're not conscious of your soul. You have no knowledge of your soul. Then you're on the consciousness level of an animal. Dogs, hogs, camels and asses, Prabhupada would say. And these are the words of Bhagavatam. Then he says, so some learn the existence of God, and from there, some will focus in the direction of karma or work, karma. Some might even go in the direction of jnana, speculation, mental speculation, philosophy, like that, and others for yoga. But only when devotion to the Supreme Lord develops, which he says is very rare, are you truly fortunate. So we understand also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, my Gurudev also, it's explained that there are 5 levels of consciousness. So we are not looking anymore, of the evolution that they're saying, or the fish came somehow or other out of water, developed some legs, ended up walking, and then in time became a monkey, and from that monkey came a human being. We're not looking at the changes of the bodies, we're looking at the development of consciousness. This is the important part, because we are members of the Kṛṣṇa consciousness movement. So we're here together to develop our Kṛṣṇa consciousness, like that. So the first level of consciousness is called avrita cetana. Cetana means consciousness. Avrita cetana means covered consciousness. So just in your mind's eye, picture, maybe a seed in the ground, right? It's covered. Covered consciousness. So trees, plants, even rocks, mountains, they come in that category. And it is explained, it's covered consciousness because the consciousness is practically non-existent. It's covered, it's so thickly covered, it's barely noticeable. Consciousness must be there, otherwise there wouldn't be any life. Consciousness is the symptoms of life, the symptom of the presence of the soul. But in these species, the consciousness is so covered, it's barely noticeable. In this, the trees and plants, they are only aware of 6 transformations, coming to life, developing, having offspring, like that. But practically their consciousness is inert and they have not the faintest, this is the important point, they don't have the faintest recollection of their original self. You see? And that's why it is explained later on, actually only when you come to the human level of consciousness, not necessarily just the body with 2 legs and 2 arms, but to the human level of consciousness, can you take up Kṛṣṇa consciousness. It's not possible for these plants. Of course, Jiva-daya, we have compassion. Srila Prabhupada explains, even we walk through the forest, we chant Hare Krishna, even these souls will benefit. They will get the benefit of the holy name. But in of themselves, they have no idea of soul. And that's why this level of consciousness reflects the most degraded state of consciousness. You know, Prabhupada also gives that, there's that nice painting in the Bhagavad Gita where, again, according to the 3 modes, if somebody, you know, likes to lie naked on the beach or like that, then in their next life there will be a tree. Because then without clothes, free, they can stand there and be naked, like that, you see. So the next level, the second level of consciousness is called Sankuchita Cetana, or shrunken. So it's covered and it's opening a little bit, but it's still shrunken. So birds, beasts, reptiles, they come in this category of shrunken consciousness. What does shrunken consciousness mean? They're slightly aware. They're more conscious than the plants because they're aware of the need of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That's what animals think about, isn't it? That's what they're occupied with. They have no knowledge of life after death. You know, I've seen it in different situations, different animals know they're about to die and they just find a quiet spot somewhere. I've seen kangaroos like that, the monkeys here, also dogs. They know inherently they have some idea it's coming to an end and they just find a nice spot to die, but they have no idea what's going to happen next and they cannot inquire about it. And that's why it's so silly. It's a bit sad, you know, when people become so affectionate and so attached to keeping dogs as pets. I see it now even here in India. It's just like in the West. People are keeping dogs in their homes, and usually, you know, when they're a pet, they're very fat and overweight and over-pampered. And because the nature, according to the modes of nature, the dog's nature is that of loyalty to a master. You know, a dog will always look for a master. You see it when I walk here to Mangalatik in the morning, there's always some dogs coming. Will you be my master? Will you be my master? Will you feed me? Will you feed me? Isn't it? So now if I'm sentimental and if I don't have the right understanding, oh, he loves me, I'm needed, oh, so cute. It's just completely sentimental. There's no question of a loving exchange between interspecies like that. So it's very sad, you know, to see, because a dog, he cannot make spiritual inquiry. Of course, these dogs here are also very lucky. They're right next to the temple. So, you know, they'll get some benefit. So they don't have any knowledge of life after death or transcendence. They're slightly able to analyze consequences and possess a sense of gratitude. So this is how you can see how their consciousness is slightly elevated from that of the trees and plants, because, you know, the monkeys know if you carry a stick, there will be consequences if I try and be mischievous. Or the dog, you know, I might get kicked if I'm not careful. So there's some idea of consequence of action, and and they're grateful. Animals will be grateful. If you feed them, they will be very loyal to you. Horses or cows or dogs, cats, monkeys. You feed them, they're grateful. But again, like Prabhupada says, You may put a dog on the throne, like a king on the throne, but then you throw a bone, he's going to jump for the bone, isn't it? Like that. So they have to act their nature. So the third level is called mukhalita cetana, or budding. See, it's budding. We just remember the flower. It's sort of coming to budding stage. So that level, the third level, mukhalita cetana, budding, is the human being. This is there, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says there's two types of human beings. He also explains it in this way. There's those who are lawless and immoral. And then there's those who are atheistic, but they're law-abiding. So he kind of breaks it down like that. So this is mukhalita cetana. So if you find somebody who's out and out atheistic, they're not interested in God consciousness, they're even immoral in their behavior, like they're not following any regulative principles, well, you can understand their consciousness is just on this level. The fourth stage is vikachita cetana, blossoming consciousness. See, now it's opening to a flower, blossoming consciousness. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, Sheshvara Naitika. There's those, the blossoming consciousness is somebody who is a theist. They have a belief in God. They're moralistic. They're law-abiding citizens. They want to do good. They want to be good people. They want to follow religion. They want to abide by God, like that. And actually, he explains that the sadhana bhaktas, sadhana simply means process. So any religious process, any devotee, bhakta means devotee. So any devotee that follows a religious process, with the aim of pleasing God, comes under this vikachita cetana, or blossoming consciousness. Unfortunately, he says, he expresses it like that, he says, but their devotion is impeded by rules and regulations. Many devotees, they also get very focused. Rules and regulations are important, especially in the beginning stage, because we need to come to blossoming consciousness. We have to be able to behave ourselves. However, the fifth level is called purna vikachita cetana, or fully blossoming consciousness. That's fully Kṛṣṇa consciousness. These are the bhava bhaktas. These are devotees who have love for God. They're not just religious, they're not just moral, they're not just law-abiding and rules and fear of not breaking rules and regulations, but they've actually developed love for God. So these are bhava bhaktas. They have an unlimited and spontaneous attraction to the service of God. These are the words. They have an unlimited, spontaneous attraction to the service of God. So I felt when I was reading this verse, I remember my childhood, and I feel lucky that I grew up in the Christian background, because there we learned about our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. So from small we had an education that God is a person. He's my Father. So a loving Father. So even as a child I understood I have to behave, I have to be good, but there is somebody who loves me. Of course I had no idea, because we didn't have that education, what God looks like, where he is. We only know Michelangelo's painting, of the old man in the sky with a long beard, like that. So, but still, it's important to understand in this sloka how God is a person, and Kṛṣṇa is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, because especially here in India, oftentimes people are thinking, and it's also been educated in that way, I think, that Kṛṣṇa comes from Vishnu. He's an incarnation of Vishnu, but actually it's the other way around, like that. And we can learn that Srila Prabhupada quotes a verse that's also given by Rupa Goswami. It's from the Padma Purana, very famous verse. It says, Smartavya satatam Vishnu, Vishmatavyo najatu chit, save vidhi nishedasyo etayo eva kinkara. Very famous verse and interesting. Like I said, I don't know Sanskrit, but I try to memorize some of the words and become familiar. So smartavya, so smarta must be remembrance, something. In vidhi nisheda, I know some words, but I couldn't see Kṛṣṇa. So somebody has to explain it to me, because Srila Prabhupada, interestingly enough, which I really appreciate, he gives the translation like that. He says, Kṛṣṇa is the origin of Vishnu. He should always be remembered and never forgotten at any time. All the rules and regulations, rules and prohibitions, all the rules and prohibitions mentioned in the Shastras should be the servants of these two principles. So we don't need to be any, erudite scholars. We just need to learn a verse like this. Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. From him everything emanates. And our goal is to always remember him and never forget him. And then you have the knowledge of all the Vedas. Like that, you see. So it's presented so nicely to us. And of course in the Brahma Samhita, I know Devi Shakti Mataji, she spoke so nicely about going home back to Godhead a few days back. But we know from Lord Brahma, he speaks himself once he was enlightened by Kṛṣṇa. Ishvaraha parama Kṛṣṇa, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadya Adya Govinda, Sava Karana Karanam. So here also Kṛṣṇa, who is known as Govinda. I love that. When I first learned Brahma Samhita, I was thinking, this is just so beautiful. Again, remembering my education about God, just some old man and like that. But then you read these beautiful descriptions, you think, oh yes, that is a beautiful God. I like that. I want to go there. I want to be with him, right? Isn't it? That all that fear and awe and reverence, leaves your heart. And the idea that you get as many chances as you need to come back home to him, not like in Christianity of either you go to heaven or you go to hell. That was just horrific to hear. But anyhow, and then Chintamani prakarasatma sukalpa vriksha laksha viteshu surabhiya vipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra satasam brahma sevyamanam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. So this is so beautiful, no? What a beautiful description of Goloka and the Lord's home. And such a nice description, and we are invited to go there. So there's many more verses in the Brahma Samhita that I wanted to touch upon, but time is short. So I just wanted to bring up another point, that going to the seed-giving Father, Prabhupada quotes this verse quite a lot, but it says here in the book the source is unknown. But it goes like this: Janame janame sabe pitā mata pai, Kṛṣṇa guru nahi mile bhaja hari ai. Birth after birth, one receives a mother and father. But if one gets the benediction of Guru and Kṛṣṇa, he conquers the material energy and returns back to Godhead by worship of the Lord. So we're learning about the three modes of material nature and how to switch our consciousness from material consciousness to spiritual, transcendental consciousness. And we are encouraged that here we are told, you've had so many mothers and fathers. In every lifetime you've had a mother and a father. Maybe they were good or not so good or this or that. But in every species of life, you have a mother and a father. So don't be so bewildered or attached or overwhelmed in this life again by your mother and father, but just accept Guru and Kṛṣṇa like your mother and father. Then, if you can come to that consciousness of accepting Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Father, you can conquer the material energy. You can conquer the material energy, which is impossible. Even Arjuna is saying that's impossible. But you see, because you're taking shelter of Guru and Kṛṣṇa, and like we said at the beginning, only by serving Kṛṣṇa can you actually overcome the three modes. He will help you. And not only that, you don't just become free from the influence of the modes of material nature, but you return home, back to Godhead, this Chintamani Dham, where every word is a song, every step is a dance. Like that. It's beautiful, isn't it? So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also, he sings many beautiful songs. When we were in Orissa for some years, the temple in Bhubaneswar used to organize a Padayatra festival each Kartik month. Padayatra means you go by walking, and many devotees even barefoot walking from village to village to village, and we would walk many miles, many kilometers every day, going by walking, and to go to these remote places to encourage people, remind them of their culture, remind them you're a soul, you're not this body. Please worship the Supreme Lord, you see, like that. And being on Padayatra, we used to love singing this song. Nadiya, Nadiya, Godrume Nityananda Mahajan, Patiyache Namahate Jivarakaran, Sharavanjana He, Sharavanjana He, Prabhu Agyai Bai, Magiye Bhiksha, Bolo Kṛṣṇa Bhajo Kṛṣṇa, Koro Kṛṣṇa Shiksha, Aparada Sunya Hoy, Loho Kṛṣṇa Nam, Kṛṣṇa Mata, Kṛṣṇa Pitā, Kṛṣṇa Dana Pran, Kṛṣṇera Saṅsara Koro Jariyamacha, Jive Doya Kṛṣṇa Nam, Savadamasa, Nadiya, Nadiya Gotrume Nityananda Mahajan, Patiyache Namate Jivarakaran. So it's a beautiful song. In the land of Nadia, on the island of Godruma, the magnanimous Lord Nityananda has opened up the marketplace of the holy name, meant for the deliverance of all fallen souls. O men of faith, O men of faith, by the order of Lord Gauranga, O brothers, I beg this one request. Chant Kṛṣṇa, chant Kṛṣṇa, louder, chant Kṛṣṇa. Worship Kṛṣṇa and follow Kṛṣṇa's instructions, being careful to remain free of offenses. Just take the holy name of Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa is your mother, Kṛṣṇa is your father, and Kṛṣṇa is the treasure of your life. Giving up all improper behavior, carry on your worldly duties only in relation to Kṛṣṇa. The showing of compassion to all fallen souls by loudly chanting the holy name of Kṛṣṇa is the essence of all forms of religion. It's the essence of all forms of religion. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're so fortunate. We're so fortunate. Another song, which is also really important because Srila Prabhupada quotes it in this connection. he also encourages us not to get so bewildered by our family situation. And he explains, just like so many straws or sticks get washed up together by the river or in the ocean with one wave. So many sticks come together. So in this life, certain souls have taken birth and you've come together as a family. But that's not your eternal situation. Then in the next life, the next wave comes and again you're separated and you're thrown in another direction. So the idea is to really take shelter of Kṛṣṇa, who is not only our seed-giving Father, but he is the only object of love. He is the one who can perfectly reciprocate our loving nature. And he's greedy for our loving nature, like that. So another song is Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai, e shikariya sapnariya piche neche gonitai, miche maya boshe jacho beshe kacho habu dububai. Jiv Kṛṣṇa das e bishwas koleto adukonai, Kṛṣṇa bolbe jabe pulakabe jobe anki bolitai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bollo sange chalo e matra bikajai, Jai Sakha Bipot Bhakti Vinod Bolle Jakon Onam Gai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai, Radha Kṛṣṇa bol bol bollo re shobai. Everyone chant, chant, chant. Radha Kṛṣṇa, bolo. It's Purushottam month, you can do better than that. Radha Kṛṣṇa. You know, you say Radha, Kṛṣṇa comes running. He might be hiding from you, but you say Radha, he comes running. And you say Kṛṣṇa, Radharani is very near. So we chant Radha Kṛṣṇa. Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are dancing all over the land of Nadia, giving this teaching to all. Oh brother, needlessly, under the control of Maya, you suffer and are carried away by her waves. This is where this concept comes from, the waves of material nature, that we're tossed around and tossed together and separated again, sometimes floating and sometimes sinking in this ocean of illusion. If you have this faith, just ask yourself now, do I have this faith that the soul is the eternal servant of Kṛṣṇa? Then there will be no more misery, because you don't identify with the body anymore. So you might have a headache, you might have a stomach upset, or you might be really tired. But you know you're not this body, so then you can able to tolerate, you can bear it. You don't let your, stop your chanting or your Kṛṣṇa conscious services, because you know it's just temporary. It's because the body is like that. And when you chant the holy name of Kṛṣṇa, your body will shiver in ecstasy and your eyes will shed tears in love of God. This is what I say. So we need to aim for this. We're encouraged to aim for this. Chant Radha Kṛṣṇa in the association of devotees. No. You're all good devotees. This is the only request I beg. Thakur Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, when I chant the holy name of the Lord, all dangers go away. Like that. So there's so many more things that we'd like to say. I hope this was a little bit informative to you, and I thank you for allowing me this little service, speaking some little things on Bhagavad Gita. Does anybody have a question or maybe a comment or something to add? Yeah. Purna vikachita cetana. So it's avrita cetana, sankuchita cetana, mukhalita cetana, vikachita cetana, and purna vikachita cetana. Like that. It was interesting, isn't it? I find it interesting because I always wondered for so many years, how is it 400,000 species of human beings? What does that mean? Maybe it means also human beings, aliens on other planets or something, But the explanation is given that it's according to the level of consciousness. And then the definition of each level is given, and accordingly, you're actually in that species. It sounds a little bit harsh, it sounds a little bit harsh, but we can't be sentimental. We can't be sentimental. Somebody has to speak the truth. If you behave like an animal, if you're irresponsible and you don't care for consequences and you just want to enjoy, free sex, whatever, intoxication, without any shame. In the West, even here in India now too, actually the consciousness is that, I remember when I was young, it kind of came up in the 60s and 70s, why should we have all these religious restriction? It's my body, I can do as I like. That's when the abortion and contraception and all these things and drugs and comes more and more because it's my choice. I have a free will. Yes, you have a free will to become an animal again. You don't deserve this human body because only in the human body can you make spiritual inquiry. And it's the duty of every human being to make spiritual inquiry. And if you don't deserve to be in that species. And that's Bhagavatam speaking. And Bhagavatam speaks a lot stronger words. Sometimes we do some preaching and you speak about consequence. Nowadays it's not cool. It's just not in to bring up topics like, if you engage in sinful activities, they don't like to hear that word because it's my choice. I can do as I like. I like to do this. I want to do this. But according to Shastra, that's sinful activity. And if you engage in sinful activity, you may have to go to hell. Oh, hell. I don't believe in hell. Well, you may believe or you may not believe, but it exists. There's punishment. If you're so irresponsible, so reckless and defiant, then you have to reap the consequence. And somebody has to speak these truths like that. Okay, thank you for your cheerful participation. Thank you for being here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.